Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone got to tune in with our opening act, or we can say part one of our virtual sign doubleheader. The man that you still see on your left, the one and only Demon Dale Torborg. We are back with his other half. Some would say his better half. You know, bodybuilding fans know her. WCW wrestling fans know her. You know her as Asya, a.k.a. Christi Wolf, a.k.a. Christi Torborg. Asya, well, thank you for joining us here on the Captain's Corner Happy Hour.
Great to see you. Great to see everybody. Well, not see you, but...
They see you, exactly. And we're going to have a good time, guys. And the cool thing is I'm getting everything loaded, and you'll be able to ask all your questions. I'm going to share out. If you guys can share out with us right now, we're running solo. Maybe now you guys can tell the story about how you met, that Dale had briefly brought up before we ended his part.
Well, I can say from my end of it was... I was flying out to St. Louis with Johnny Swinger. I was going to do the tryout match for the Demon character. No makeup, no nothing. Do a dark match. We had a 10-minute dark match scheduled. It was right after I blew my knee out. So with blowing my knee out, and I just got back, and I was, I really didn't, probably shouldn't have been in the ring at that point because I'd been on the shelf for 6 months. But we flew into St. Louis, ended up at the baggage claim, and as we're at the baggage claim, we're getting ready to leave, and I hadn't met Christi yet, and she was at the Avis counter, and there was nobody at the counter. I walked up and I said, "Hey, you need a ride? You okay?" And I introduced myself and Johnny, and she's like, "No, I'm good. They're going to get the key to the car," and I said, "Okay. Yeah, well, nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah." And we leave. And I remember walking out, and I said to Swinger, I said, "I don't know what I was expecting." But I go, "She was really nice." And then I did the tryout match, never saw her backstage. Never saw her once that whole day backstage. And then it wasn't until we started, she started training at the power plant. Then I ended up getting to know her.
Yeah, we actually became really like best friends.
And now there couldn't have been. Were there a lot of females at the power plant at the time?
Not at the time.
Actually, the crazy thing is they told me I was the first female to be at the new one.
Really?
The very first female, yeah.
And there weren't many, if any, at the old power plant. When we were training, there really wasn't at all. It wasn't until she actually asked them if she could go train, because she wanted to learn how to wrestle. And that's one of the things that I give her so much respect. And if you go back and watch some of the WCW tapes, she was doing a backflip in those like high-heeled chunky shoes. And she was doing backflips as big as she was, as a jacked up bodybuilder. But yeah, she did amazing things, but she asked to learn how to wrestle. And the crazy thing is she had the match with Midnight, and neither one of them had much time.
Yeah.
And they put her on Monday Nitro. That time in WCW was kind of crazy, thinking they're throwing you out. They're throwing you out, and you're gonna
sink or swim. Yeah.
I remember taking her to.
If we mess up, we'll just keep rolling.
Yeah. Well, no pressure, live on TV. Yeah, I know.
I do remember before the match, they had told her she was going to be on Monday doing the match. And we found a gym, a local ring. And we went and got in the ring. And I said, "I'll set the match up. I will play the part of Midnight. And you do." And we went through the whole thing. And I said, "She's going to forget here.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And she's going to forget here. So you've got to be, cognizant of the fact that this could happen. So be aware that you're going to have to be able to call that spot if she forgets." And those two spots she forgot.
He was right.
Wow.
He was right.
Instead of an angel over your shoulder, you got a demon in your corner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Spot on.
Yeah.
You said you were watching that match at Applebee's or something because
we didn't have
cable.
We had gotten a new house, and where we lived is far out, and they didn't have any.
Oh, you didn't have any. Okay.
And so we were waiting for DirecTV to be put in. So I went and watched. I went to a local Applebee's and sat in the corner by myself watching that, like, just leave me alone. I don't need any breadsticks. I don't need that. I want to watch this. Just back off. Yeah. So that's what happened. So they ended up having that match, and neither of them were ready for it. And they just that back then things were just, here, let's do this.
Yeah, there were so many people under contract.
Yeah.
That TV time, though, was so valuable, too. I mean, any company will kill for the numbers that WCW and WWE were doing back then.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
When you look at the numbers back then of what the actual ratings were compared to now, you just see how many people stopped watching wrestling.
Yeah.
Because the NWO really brought so many of the people that weren't like big time wrestling fans.
The casual fans,
yeah. So they were watching, but once that all ended, it just kind of, you really saw when WCW was over. And what's interesting too is now with the way that that back when WCW was sold and everything was about the WWE and all that was always taking jabs and making fun of WCW. Her character, my character. So many people were just getting knocked down and ribbed unmercifully, right? But what ended up happening is, and every one of these signings, everything that we do, you get so many people now go, I miss those times.
Oh, God.
So it shifted. It was the punching bag, WCW. A lot of the characters, a lot of that stuff were a punching bag of humor and that snarkiness of the early 2000s, that type of thing. So it became like the joke, but it isn't anymore because people just go, gosh, I really miss those days. Every one of these you'll see tomorrow. People will come up and just go, I miss WCW.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like that Cinderella song. You don't know what you got till it's gone.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Tom Kiefer.
Yeah, I'm a big Cinderella fan. They're New Jersey band, right?
No, well, Philadelphia.
Okay. So close, kind of close.
Yeah, close enough.
We got some great photos coming up, and maybe you both could say a couple of words. So this is our Asia #1 option. Check this out. When you see this photo, what do you think, Christy? What do you think, Dale?
I don't know where that was taken.
I don't know where it was taken, but I remember vividly that it was it before a match? It had to be. It was before a match. I don't know where it was taken.
Was that wasn't St. Louis, was it?
No.
Your St. Louis was, I think,
that was the
original promo.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that one over there. Okay.
Yeah.
And I have her.
Really
I have her boots from the original promo up in the glass trophy case.
Oh, you got them boxed?
Yeah. Well, I got them. They're in the big trophy case, and they've got the frills on them and all that. So I've kept most of her stuff and framed some of her.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because a lot of like back when we were on, we had to come up with our own. It wasn't made for us.
It was your own concepts of the gear and what you wore, right?
At times we didn't even have a seamstress on.
Right.
Sandra did at
so
some of the bigger shows.
We had to kind of do our own frills.
Yeah. Whatever piqued your own interest creatively.
Right.
Now, this is #2. So Asia brought up off camera, and I brought up too. Tori's face is truly underrated when she gets grabbed here. Whoever took the photo took a very good photo. But
Yeah.
what do you said something, memories of maybe your time with Tori?
Oh yeah, I was just, because I was spent, obviously a lot of time under some heavy weight, and then Tori, you just kind of think, it won't be, but it was like, whoa, you better make sure your balance is, because she's kind of tough.
Yeah.
Get it together, because she's
Had you crossed paths with her before wrestling at all? Because she was doing fitness modeling as well, right?
Yeah, no, no.
Okay, so WCW is where you guys first came. This is our #2 option.
You had to pick her up.
Yeah,
and walk
and
in those high-heeled boots on that stage. I don't know how you did
she
that.
was fighting me the whole time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah.
Do not sprain an ankle.
Yeah.
Just
now our number 3 photo right here.
Yeah.
When you see that one, what do you think? What memory is behind the photo?
so that's one of the original. That's
That's the original promo, right? This, by the way,
Yeah.
Jacob sent this in. This is the frilly boots that Dale was referring to.
Yeah.
That number 3 is the close up essentially on this original promo photo.
Is that St. Louis?
yeah.
So that was the day
Yeah.
we met.
Oh, what? What?
Yeah.
And that was actually a really cool dress that I cut up
Oh, really?
to put over. Yeah, I mean, why not? I'll just say that was a really, really cool dress that I had that I cut up.
So that's not a top. You made it a
I
top.
made it, yeah.
Really? You brought it with you, or you already had it done?
Top of my boots.
Oh man.
So it's like we're
Yeah.
See that's the kind of
us now. Like,
no, but that's the kind of that's the
Long time.
interesting
Yeah.
interesting stories.
Yeah,
That's cool.
I crafted that with a dress.
Now we got one more, and this is your pre-Asia days.
Yes.
When you see that photo, what do you think of? What's up, Joe? What's up, James?
I think that was when I turned pro in '98.
A lot of hard work.
Yeah, I finally got it right because with bodybuilding, it's, oof, you got to come in just right. If you come in with your muscles depleted and flat, then you want them to come in full and get the water just right. If you cut your water too long, then you're too flat, and it just But that was finally when I figured it out.
When you went pro, so that's from '98.
Took years to figure it out. Yeah, that was in '98 and turned pro that weekend.
Oh, that's
In
awesome.
Atlanta in '98.
So this is Atlanta
It
'98.
was MPC Nationals. Yeah, I was the heavyweight champion. And the funny thing about that is I was really upset, and really stressed because I was trying to be a middleweight,
Okay.
and I was just trying to just drop 1 pound.
Okay.
And it was like, Lord, please, like, help me, like, why I can't be a middleweight, but everything happens for a reason. He has a bigger plan. And if I dropped down to a middleweight, I would not have won. But because I was the most fit heavyweight, I ended up winning. So, blessing in disguise.
Well, now were you cool with the middleweight champion? Where you could be like, oh, you're lucky I couldn't drop.
She was
drop that.
Oh my gosh, her waist was like this. She was shredded. If I tried to be a middleweight, I would have.
Oh, so it worked out for the best then for everyone.
She was amazing. So it was definitely a blessing in disguise.
Now, can you talk about how you made the transfer from the bodybuilding world to the wacky world of wrestling? Where was the call, or was the event that wound up getting everything in motion?
Well, back in the day, I actually managed a gym called Phoenix Gym in Daytona Beach, and after hours, I would train because you had the whole gym to yourself. So back then, Kevin Sullivan and Kevin Nash, they would come in the gym, and I mentioned to them that I train after hours, and they were like, that would be awesome. And so I we would all kind of work out together. And so one day, Kevin Sullivan and Kevin Nash were talking, and then all of a sudden, Nash turned to me and he said, would you like to play wrestling? And so I was like, sounds good, sure. So
Had you thought about it at any point, like since that had been coming in, or
no, not really, because I was so thinking bodybuilding, and so it was actually just such a blessing, because you can only do so much with bodybuilding, and it's like, okay, where am I going to go from here? So it was absolutely just a huge blessing, and of course, here we are. So yeah, it was great. I was thrilled that they thought of me for that.
Anthony wants to know, did you enjoy working with Tori Wilson?
Oh yeah. Tori was cool. Yep.
JD says greetings to both you, Demon,
Hello.
Asia, and of course Captain Nick. Question: what was it like working with Ric Flair as Nurse Asia from Happy Acres?
It wasn't Nurse Asia though.
Oh, that's right. You were technically Asia, right?
Good call.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was double D.
Was that the
Nurse Dee Dee.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you see, he knows. But I just, oh my gosh. I just remember going, because that was, what Kevin Nash was like, had in mind for me to go into to play, to bring me on, was that character exactly. And I was like thinking what was going on, but it was so much fun. It was just amazing to have that much fun and just to be there and just witness all these characters, because the actors were getting into character and they're all trying to act crazy, and then you have Flair that doesn't even need to act crazy because he is crazy. And it was so awesome and just so much fun. It was just something that I'll never forget, and just it was great.
No.
And Flair's been great to you. I mean,
He's something else.
I created a video for her 50th birthday, and Flair did it. He sent a video to me, and it was awesome.
He's so
really?
Yeah, he's
great.
He's great with her. And
Yeah.
always has been, just super classy, and just always whenever I see him, ask how's Asia.
Never seen Rick upset or in a bad mood. Never. I mean, he might have been a little under the weather.
Yes, good, fantastic way to phrase.
But never, he's always upbeat. I always thought that was.
That is a human being that has lived every single ounce of his life to the nth degree.
Yeah. Hey.
He hasn't left. You know how they talk about leaving something on the table?
I know.
Never left anything.
No, you're right. No one will say that about Flair.
No, he
He was
zest for
awesome.
life.
He was great. I mean, because when I started doing that character, and then they actually brought me in, as as part of WCW and gave me a name and everything, I was pretty clueless, and he was just great. He's just like, don't worry about it, just follow me, and I'll tell you when, I'll talk to you. You don't worry about anything. This is what's gonna go down, and I got you. And I was like, okay. It was really just an incredible time.
Of course, you guys were with Little Nate was there too, right? Charles Robinson. Yeah, I remember.
So-
yeah.
Oh, Charles is awesome.
Yeah.
I saw Charles at that Mad Monster. He's terrific.
He's
dude.
great.
He really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I remember we did a signing, was one of Sting's last signings in makeup, and we were talking about how, Flair, Sting's about ready to do the splash. Flair pulls her in front of him.
Yeah.
They were watching the old WCW tapes.
That was great. Yeah.
There's a reason why people remember that period of time so fondly. Flair was incredible.
He was great.
I mean, you
Great
look
show.
at Flair and Hogan and Macho Man and just that group. And I'll tell you, one of the groups that doesn't get enough credit, and you don't realize how big they were, Ernest Miller, Glacier, Brian Adams, and Chris Kanyon. When they were doing that whole kind of
Mortal Kombat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
you don't realize until you see them in person how, like Brian Adams and Brian Clark, how big those dudes were, and the agility of a Chris Kanyon. You don't see that in today's wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
The guys those guys were, here I am at 6'6", and I was like average height.
Yeah, you're the 14th tallest person in the locker room. Yeah.
It's just like when you see it, and then you go now, and it's, I like for when I did Impact, there were, I was one of the tallest with I'm trying to think of who the guys there were. There just weren't. There were only a couple guys that were about my height, So
It was pretty awesome though, because I remember that moment he was talking about. I don't know if I'm the only female that ever got splashed by Sting twice or 3 times.
Yeah, at
Anyway.
least twice.
It couldn't have been many.
Definitely
Yeah.
twice. It might have been 3 times,
might
but it
have
was
been the
great
only
because I mean, it was great because Flair, was just playing off the crowd. I had no clue. And so he brings me up into the ring. He calls me up and I get up in there and then Sting is getting ready to splash him and he grabs me and puts me in front of him. And the place just erupted. And they're like, she's going to get splashed. And I remember him saying, keep your head back, keep your head back. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm getting splashed, And it was awesome. It was like, whoa, it hurt, it hurt. But it was like, it was so cool at the same time. And it was like, he was just amazing to be able to just read, feel the crowd, what they really wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, that was it. They wanted.
Yeah, he knew. Yeah.
It was just wow.
She was in the ring with some of the greats of literally of all time. I mean, some of the most iconic wrestlers. You just talked about Flair, obviously, many, many, many times with Flair. You were, Sting splashes you. You had a match with Little Nate. Macho Man and Piper
with Macho
and Piper,
yeah,
whole thing,
figure 4 lock.
Yeah,
that was. I was just thinking in my mind. I'm sitting there like I am in a figure 4 lock with a man in a skirt. It's like, and it hurts.
And think about that. You wrestled Rey Mysterio.
Yeah.
You
Ray was incredible.
What
an athlete.
I had a great one with
Eddie Guerrero.
Well, I was just going to say, Eddie Guerrero's daughter came up to me at Spooky Empire and said, I want to ask you a question. And I said, okay. She waited until everyone, got their autographs. And she's like, I'm Eddie Guerrero's daughter. Can you tell me anything about my dad that you remember? And I just was floored. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I said, I've got to show you a picture. And I said, and I pulled it up. I'm like, here's your dad being suplexed by my wife. So she ended up having a match and suplexing Eddie Guerrero. So she had some of the greats.
That's cool.
Eddie got me. Oof, man, that was when he did, his finishing move, that splash.
Frog splash, yeah.
Oh man, he's laying on me going, I'm sorry, because I was like, oh. But it was like, whoa, that is no joke. That thing was no joke taking that.
Yeah, that WCW roster from 1999, 2000. If you look at it, it's like the dream team essentially for wrestling with all of the names from top to bottom.
Amazing.
It's insane just to say you were part of that roster, right? I mean, now they would talk about it on commentary, Christi, but can you talk about the name Asia? Whose idea was that? And it was such a unique name. I remember they always used to play it up on commentary. But if you could tell, maybe the backstory behind the name.
Because I was double D. Wait, would you say it was?
It was Nurse Dee Dee, but
No,
it was
Nurse
a
Dee Dee.
play on the Dee thing.
Yeah, right, okay. Well, it didn't. That was only a couple weeks anyway. That didn't last long. And then they pulled me aside and they said, we're going to give you a name, and your name is Asia. And at that time, China was really big with WCW, and it was kind of a play. WWE, and it was kind of a play that, they just said Asia's bigger than China. So that's the name they gave me.
Mark Madden would always talk about on commentary. I remember that.
So.
Mark Madden's the one that gave me the name of my finish. That's not what I had said.
Oh, yeah, what was...
The name, I had 2 names that I wanted, and they ended up, Mark Madden said, that's the Love Gun. That was never one of the names, ever. I don't know where it came from. I need to ask him someday. But the 2 that I had put in for were Destroyer or the Kiss of Death.
Because they're both good names.
Yeah, and then it ended up Love Gun.
Did he call an audible? Do you think if you had to guess?
I think he did.
You talked about how they maybe didn't even have plans for you to get in the ring. You decided you wanted to go into the power plant, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, they mentioned it. They asked me if I wanted to.
Okay, they did. Did you talk about that?
They asked me if I wanted to, and I said, oh my gosh, yes. Yes, definitely. So, I was actually looking forward to it.
I'm glad they did.
It was fun. It was tough. The power plant was, that was,
No joke.
Was Sarge was in charge?
yeah.
Can you talk about an average power plant day to anyone that doesn't know? Because there's athletes that came in there and talked about that was the hardest training they had ever been through in their career. Professional athletes. You guys
I remember
talk.
seeing pro football players coming in thinking it was going to be a breeze, and they were crying like in
Crawling.
a couple of hours, like throwing up, crying, and just I can't do this.
Throwing up, crying, crawling out of there. I mean, those documentaries that they did,
Yeah.
whether it was A&E or Dateline or whatever those were, I can't even think of one. But Jane, I think it was Jane Pauley or somebody, they had come in, and you can watch them on YouTube. They were no joke.
It was
It was
9 in the morning, right?
Yeah.
9 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon.
all day.
And we had like an hour break for lunch or whatever. But it was like the morning would start out. We would do our stretching, and then we would go into some calisthenics, and then into some crazy stuff. There were four rings set up, and we would go certain exercises in one ring, like push-ups over the bag, and then the next ring would be like monkey rolls. And then the next ring, I mean, every ring had something, and we were running it, and we were timed, and we whistle would blow, change the ring, and then you had to go through and do your, I mean, it was nonstop. And then they would take us outside, and then we would do sprints.
It was
And,
brutal. We did the gauntlet
Yeah,
where you would start in, if they
It's
had
tough.
5 rings set up, you would slide in the first ring, go to the ropes, hit the rope,
Yep.
hit the rope again, hit it again, do a front flip, land, slide out, slide in, hit the rope, front flip, and then you'd run and keep doing that. They would make you run the gauntlet
How many times?
until they told you to stop.
so I mean, it was brutal.
I mean
It was
the
brutal.
normal day was tough, and then we would do tag arounds where you would set up, and I got to tell you, I mentioned Chad Fortune. Chad was great. That some of the times it was just us teaching each other because Sarge might be on the road setting up a ring and being on the road crew. Pistol Pez Watley was great. I mean, his psychology and setting it up for tag team. Sometimes Terry Taylor would come down and work with us. Mike Winter was another guy that was in there. But, Chad got us doing tag arounds where you would just have guys around the ring and you would just call your spots as you would, you just get in, and you and I would tag. Then I would tag Christi, and she would go, and you would just have to do things and think on the fly.
Okay.
Fly.
I had one of the biggest learning experiences for me of all time was in Evansville, Indiana, doing it was a semi-main or main event, something like that, with Sting. And make a long story short, he just kept telling me, "Come back, I'm thinking about it, Finally, we're about 2 matches away. And he goes, "You know the finish?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "See you out there."
Ooh.
And as a young wrestler, when you're trying to memorize everything, I was like, "What?" And he goes, turns around, and he starts walking the ring. He's like as walking towards, the backstage area. And he's like, "Just listen, you'll be fine." And it was the greatest match for me. It was such a learning experience. I just listened to him,
Because
and
some matches can look too
too choreographed.
choreographed.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's great when you really don't know, and then you're just, because your reaction.
Yeah, you're playing off the audience, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's natural.
Yeah, it was great. And then he asked me at the end, he's like, after when we came backstage, he goes, "How was it?" I said, "It was awesome." He goes, "Did you hear the crowd?" I said, "I did." Were you free?" And I said, "I was." He goes, "Now, when you can do that, that's when you're a pro wrestler." Whoa. It was a huge, huge learning experience to say, being able to listen and then being able to call stuff on the fly. Because when it was time for my offense, he goes, "Go ahead, here you go." And then had me call it. He was great. I mean, such a, seeing him at that signing recently, he's a special guy, and, I did a documentary about my dad. I produced a documentary. My dad passed about a year and a half ago, and I produced a documentary about him. And I got the greatest message from Sting. It was like a 3-minute message going through the documentary on the message for me and just telling me the different parts and how much he enjoyed it. It was such, I still have it saved. It's just it's an awesome thing to have somebody that you look up to and, you know, you respect so much reach out like that and tell me about, you know, that he watched the documentary. Just a special guy. And he was big for my career.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Cuban Assassin, Top Gun. He'll be here tomorrow. He's in the chat right now. He's looking forward to seeing everyone tomorrow.
Great dude.
Absolutely.
I wrestled him in Philly. That's a Q&A question.
Oh!
I don't know if he even remembers that I wrestled him. And
Sure, but check this out.
my coffin didn't open.
Oh, really?
That's who I was wrestling.
Oh, my God.
And then when I kicked it open and it broke the coffin, and then my spike got caught and it spun my cape around in front of me. I mean, it was brutal.
Rough day at the office.
But this was typical WCW too. When they edited that out, and it was on for Thunder. I think it was Thunder.
Also, was it televised?
It was, but it might have been a worldwide taping or something. I don't remember exactly, but it was Thunder in Philadelphia. And when they edited, they didn't realize they put me in 2 different costumes.
Oh,
So
no.
my entrance was one, and I wrestled in another. So that's one of those things. If someone can find that match with
Cuban Assassin, yeah.
Mr. Sierra, he was great. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
That's very cool. Let us know, anyone in the comments, they can let us know the date on the match. That's very
And
cool.
I actually have the unedited footage. I'm one of the very few that have the unedited
How'd you
footage.
get that? That's
What ended up happening is part of the contract that for Kiss and Gene Simmons, Gene wanted all of the footage of everything I did. So they sent it to me to send to Gene. So I
you made a copy. Nice.
copied everything.
That's cool.
No, they actually sent a copy to me too. So I ended up having both of us had. But yeah, I have the raw footage from that.
That's cool. So someday you got to find a way to get that out to the public. That'll be a cool watch. I'm sure a lot of people will be interested.
I have the one backstage with Kiss that no one has either. We shot footage backstage with Kiss and Vince Russo, and it never aired.
Yeah.
That's the typical stuff. It never aired. We've shot it backstage, never
The
aired.
question about that: who's got the rights? Is that your rights now, or
I'm assuming it's probably the WWE.
so it would be?
Yes.
Because I mean, that'd be cool if you were able to release it with a voiceover, like introing each clip. That'd be
It's awesome
there'd be a
because it's
market
the
for that
original-
for
it's
sure.
The original 4 members of Kiss.
You know?
You
Yeah.
know, I have an 8x10, I think, of that day backstage.
Now is that scary night?
Oh yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
I have trouble calling him Fidel, but David Sierra. But is he still on there?
He just popped in a second ago, so he's probably popping in now. Yeah, you can speak right too if you want to tell him something, Dale.
If he's on there, I want to know if he was in the hotel when Marty Jannetty ran that motorcycle into the
Oh, the
hotel.
fountain?
I was there. I was outside.
I've heard that story before.
Yes.
Were you there, Dave? Were you? He said good night, but pop back in. Were you there when Jannetty took the motorcycle into the fountain?
I think he was.
That,
I didn't realize there was footage of that until I saw
there is footage.
the Dark Side of the Ring had footage of it. I had told that story for years because I was outside. I was outside the hotel when that happened. I was out with him. He was riding around outside. I think it was Rhonda Singh and I were outside. Marty was riding around and then rode up inside, and that's when that all happened inside. And it's on Marty's Dark Side of the Ring.
Well, as someone who was there, when you were watching the whole thing unfold, what is your reaction? He said, yeah, he was there with Fantasy. Yep.
Yes, that was.
Oh my gosh.
It was crazy because that was it was a motorcycle cop, and it was his motorcycle, and then it was. We thought I thought he was going to get arrested.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I had a good time with Marty on that trip. Marty and Rhonda and I spent a lot of time, Warlord, but Marty, Rhonda, and I spent a lot of time at the pool. And the Bushwhackers.
Luke will be here tomorrow.
Luke's great too.
Yeah.
Luke and Butch, I would go downstairs every morning in the hotels and eat breakfast with them, and they would teach me all the rules to cricket.
Oh, really?
So yeah, here I was, young to the business, and those guys were awesome. They literally would sit and eat breakfast, and they would teach me all the rules, and just they were super cool.
Did you ever have a chance to play them in cricket?
No.
Ah.
No, it was funny. They lost when we went over there. They lost my gear, not the Bushwhackers, but the plane ended up losing my gear. So the shin guards, because doing the MVP character, I had black shin guards and everything in my bag that got lost. Now I had my gear that I traveled with, so I had the outfit, which was an old White Sox uniform. Took off the Sox logo and put an MVP on there, but. So we ended up going to just a shop in Bangalore, I think, and got cricket shin guards and a cricket bat. And then the promoters, like the people that ran the tour, at the end, I had everybody sign the cricket pads and the bat, and we gave it to the family at the end. So we left all that stuff there.
Oh.
Yeah.
And to add on, Dave Fidel is saying, and he knocked everyone in the fountain. Yeah.
Yeah, he knocked that, and Marty ended up with the biggest knot on his leg.
Ooh.
It was brutal because he gunned it, and it was marble floor. And when he tried to stop, he knocked the guy in the fountain.
Yikes.
I think Hal Jeffrey. I don't know if Hal's going to come here tomorrow or not, but he was there, and I remember Bam Bam Bigelow was like, "I'm out." It was
It's a good time to go to bed, right?
He was gone. He was like, "I'm out of here."
So who recorded that footage? That's crazy that.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm not sure. It might have been the referee that was there at the time. Was filming a lot of the stuff for India. I didn't realize there was footage of that until when I saw it on the doc. I'm like, "Whoa!" I've told that story to people on the inside for years. Like, "Oh my gosh, they have footage of this."
That's wild. I haven't seen the dark side yet, so I gotta check it out just for
I
that.
popped
Yeah.
big time when I saw that. I kept it on our DVR at home. The DirecTV, it's still sitting there because that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was crazy.
That's worth a rewind, right?
Yeah.
Now, WCW, had they kind of eliminated house shows in 99, 2000, or were they still doing the regular house
We're
shows?
still doing house shows.
What did you have some fun at the house shows? I know that's a lot of people had more fun on the house shows than TV, which stressful.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last house show I did was with Elix.
Oh,
The last one. Yeah, some of them were a lot of fun.
I learned a lot during the house shows.
You definitely could do more.
Yeah. More relaxed, and you could just kind of just get in a groove and just really work on, perfecting your moves and focus on just wrestling and not be too worried about
Yeah, the live TV
Yeah,
and everything.
all the pressure.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed them. But live is a rush for sure, but a lot of pressure.
Now, did you guys travel together a lot when you were on the road after the first meetup, or were you kind of not always?
When we were together, when they put us together, we did. There is we were talking. Was Kenny the one that has the wall picture?
No, that's Jacob.
Jacob. Well,
He's got one coming up that we'll be getting done.
well, what's interesting is I ended up getting a call from Christi because when I wasn't on the road, she would travel with Jerry,
Okay.
Yeah.
and
the wall.
so I get a for those at the wall, I get a message, I get a call from, and she's hysterically laughing, and she's like, "You're not going to believe what Jerry and I just did." So they're wrestling. It's like the University of Arizona.
Okay.
And this was like pre-GPS.
Mm-hmm.
We had, road maps and
The Grand
cell phones
McNally's? Yeah.
and cell phones were just coming out. So
Yeah.
I mean, it was
Yeah,
not great.
there was no GPS on cell phones.
Yeah,
No.
and
Back then there weren't even cameras. I don't think back then.
I know.
I remember at some point you were printing out MapQuests. I remember
Yes.
printing out 3 and 4 and 5 pages of stuff around 2000, 2001 when I got my learned how to drive.
The hotel
Yeah.
would have on the desk our route to get to the arena from the hotel, so we make sure we grab that. Otherwise,
Yeah. Oh, God.
we were what we were doing.
So what happened? So you got a call. I'm guessing you had made a wrong turn somewhere.
Yeah.
Well,
On campus.
yeah, on campus and
Treat a building?
On campus. They were driving on campus.
On campus itself?
They
the
made
road
a wrong
got
turn.
smaller and smaller.
They were
and
driving on the
smaller, and
sidewalk
it was
to a building.
It was a
Oh my God! I know I know those campus buildings you're
With
talking about.
students looking at them like,
Oh.
And then they started surrounding us, and we're just sitting there, in the car, and
Yeah, it's like,
I'm
what?
driving, and I'm like, uh-oh.
yeah. They're like,
Whoops.
what are the
What-
ball and the
what-
Asia doing driving on campus?
I know.
Yeah, they didn't.
That would be great if the TV
Yeah,
set was had the
they
seat
didn't
up.
quite make it to the arena.
We were laughing.
Oh, so you guys didn't make it?
No, they
No.
eventually
Oh,
did.
okay.
They
Yeah.
made a wrong turn trying to get to the arena.
We were laughing so hard we couldn't even talk. I couldn't even drive because I was crying and laughing like, how is this happening? Like, what did we do? Yeah, that was
Funny.
one of the many.
Well-
With Jerry, it was always something. With
There's some Arizona State student that's
The University of Arizona.
that's telling Wildcat. He's telling this story. No one probably believes him.
Yeah.
But I swear to God,
Yeah,
a couple
they were-
wrestlers ran me over. Almost ran me over.
They were on the sidewalk. I
Yeah,
swear.
I swear.
oh my gosh, yeah, that was wild.
Jerry was what a trip he was, man. He ended up he used to wear that suit, and
Oh.
it would be every time in a ball. He would roll it up in a ball and just throw it in his bag.
Yeah.
And before every show, he'd have to find a 1-hour dry cleaners to get his suit
Yeah.
dry cleaned.
The shirt.
Yeah.
Was he ever stressed that he wouldn't find it, or
No.
No,
that there was never concern?
No.
I would have nightmares, but no, you didn't. Oh boy.
I know that was a lot harder to deal with when you guys are going from town to town, places you haven't been in. Any road stories that you could think of that make pop up?
There's so many road stories. One that was pretty freaky was I remember when we were talking about the Sacramento, from Sacramento to Reno. We Alex Wright and I hit a nasty snowstorm in Tahoe. So we drove through a snowstorm in Tahoe. But I do remember I forget who I was with driving. It might have been Sean O'Hare. And when we were driving, there was a car driving on the wrong side of the road on the highway, like in Iowa. We had a loop in like Iowa, something like that. And I just remember we did have cell phones, and there were people following us. Like there was a bunch of us, not a straight caravan, but like when we would leave the arena and then 10 minutes later someone else, that we ended up calling to people saying, "Hey, heads up," because I remember we were driving going, "Those lights look like they're coming
Oh boy. Yeah.
towards us." And then we got off the side of the road, and we're like, "Oh my God!" It was literally driving on the wrong side.
Wow.
It's like planes, trains, and automobiles. Like you're going the wrong way. But and we ended up calling saying, "Hey, heads up! Anybody behind? If anyone's behind you, let them know there's someone driving the wrong way." We ended up calling 911 and tell them that hey, just get a cop out here because this person's going to kill somebody.
Yeah, did you ever hear what happened?
No, they must have, because none of the other people. I think the car behind us, that was directly behind us, like 5-10 minutes behind, saw it, and then after that, they must have pulled it. But there was, a lot of road stories of.
There's one that I remember distinct. I just remember it was for either we were going to a Thursday Thunder or we were leaving, but it was in Denver, Colorado, and it was beautiful, but it was snowing, and it was just the revolution. So we were just all in one car together, jam packed,
Harry,
all four of us.
Shane, right? Yeah.
And Shane, and we're all.
Chris Benoit.
I can't remember who was driving at that. Can't remember who was driving, but it's just like it was so funny because that was the Thursday Thunder where somebody tried to get into the ring and Perry let him have it.
Oh.
I mean,
Blister.
yeah. And that was they got that. I mean, it was part of the show. So yeah, I don't know.
Well, it wasn't part of
I
it.
mean,
They
no.
saw it.
Oh, so it was
A fan came in the ring
Yeah,
and Perry blasted him.
Perry laid him out, and I remember just leaving there, and we're all, it was pretty intense, but we're leaving, and here we are all in this little car, and we're like jamming to Hall and Oates.
Okay.
Like, what the heck? It was like Hall and Oates,
Oh, this is great.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm a fan. I have to jam
It
out to
was
that.
so funny. I mean, just like, that whole trip, it was just crazy. It's like, oh my goodness.
I have a good one that was scary with someone who will be here tomorrow.
Oh.
So we'll have to ask him. So if there's Q&A questions for tomorrow, ask Jimmy Yang who his first TV match was against.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And he was a teenager. I think he was only
Yeah.
like 18 or 19.
Yeah, he was signed as a teenager.
Yeah, and he was a great kid back then.
Incredible last week.
But the answer would be me. So
Yeah.
on a Saturday night show, he was so thrilled that it was me. That because you're nervous at the first match that you had, and he was, like everyone else, nervous, but he was calmed down once he realized that it was going to be a match against me. But the first time that he and Jamie Noble were on the road, it was their first road trip.
Mhm.
I kind of took them under my wing. I let them stay in my hotel room, and I let them ride with me, and then didn't charge them. Just to
that's very nice.
So I had these guys, and I want to say the first shot was Philadelphia, and then we had to drive 400 miles and somewhere. And I remember they were young, and especially Jimmy was, again, he was 18 or 19 years old at this time. And, you're we're driving through the night, so we're switching drivers. And I just remember, Jimmy's driving, we're all tired. I drove the start, then I'm in the back seat and I'm trying to sleep. And I said to Jamie, I said, stay up with him to make sure he's going to be okay. Okay. All of a sudden, and I get jarred awake. Jimmy had fallen asleep driving.
Oh no.
Jamie had fallen asleep, and I'm like, all right, now I'm up.
You're wide awake. I'll drive.
Get out of the seat. So yeah, that was their first trip on the road was with me. Like we did Philadelphia and then somewhere else and maybe Baltimore. I think we might have done Baltimore was the last part of that loop. So yeah, I had their first trip. That's he and Jamie. Jimmy and Jamie's first trip.
You probably didn't have Jimmy or Jamie drive too much after that, right?
No, that was the last. That was it.
There's something that's such a wake up call on the shoulder, right? When you you could be sleeping and you feel going off, or you feel someone jerk the wheel and you're off. Yeah, real quick.
Thank goodness.
I was tired. I really needed to sleep, but I'm like, you two out. I'm like, thanks a lot, Jamie. Told you to stay awake for him.
Yeah, you could. How long had you been sleeping for? You think maybe?
I don't know, 20 minutes maybe.
Okay, jeez.
Yeah. But I was awake after that.
Yeah. Now talk about whose idea was it to eventually pair you guys? I was just saying off camera, those photos you had, that's a gimmick, the look that you guys both have. Whose idea was it to put you together? And what are your memories of the time on TV together?
Well, it was kind of a rumor that we were engaged, and we were trying to,
Oh, okay.
We tried to keep it quiet because there was a lot of politics and, she had her career threatened. Both of us did. Her career was threatened, and I kept getting punished for stupid stuff. One was the music. Then was once they found out we were engaged, I got sent home. So it was, the politics were crazy.
So we were just trying to keep it private. But
We tried. We tried to keep it. One of the wrestlers actually followed her from a video shoot to my apartment.
What?
Yeah, it was crazy, man.
That
was crazy.
Did you ever grab that person? Be like, or
We found out later.
Oh, wow!
Yeah.
What a breach of privacy. That's beyond like rumor. That's like that's almost like stalking. Yeah, it's kind of stalking.
It was crazy stuff. But yeah, once once it got out, we were dating, and then when we got engaged, they finally kind of gave in a little bit, and like, okay, well, they're an item that's, I guess I don't remember who exactly.
They just decided to put us together.
Kevin Sullivan maybe put us together.
Might have been.
I think it might have been Kevin Sullivan that
They just
said, you guys are, you're together. And then that's when she went, there's that picture's over there, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
She went and did the same hair color.
Revolution was kind of ending anyway.
Yeah. The hair color was, so she had the same, we both had, she went with the black hair, and can you see that? Or
Yeah.
She went with the black hair with the blonde streaks for her bangs. Now, what's funny about the blonde streaks for me was, we were talking about some of the stuff online and people giving you grief. It's like, I got crushed about the makeup is not the same as jeans exactly.
Mm-hmm.
We did that on purpose. So we pulled it down on the sides over here. It actually happened by accident. So Andre, the special effects guy in Atlanta, the only time I didn't do my makeup, he did it.
Okay.
And it was down a little bit further. And Gene liked that. He's like, he had told me, he goes, I don't want a clone. I don't want a clone of me, so keep that. We did the red eyes, the outfit wasn't the same. So when he said, I don't want a clone, I thought, you know what? And we talked about it. I said, I want to do something different. So Paul Stanley in like 1976 Destroyer album tour, he had a blonde streak on the side just for a little bit. And I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah, I think I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my bangs blonde and put the blonde streaks on the side and ran it down my hair. But what I didn't realize is that when I pulled those blonde streaks back, it created a stripe. So all that was like after I'd done the blonde, I'm like, oh man, like I'm going to have these. But I'm like, you know what? For the people that are average, fans, or if they're fans of wrestling, don't really know a lot about KISS or vice versa, I wanted it that for everybody to understand, this is the wrestler, this is the rock star. So when you saw a picture, one with the red eyes and the blonde streaks and all that, that's the wrestler, that's the rock star. So for the average fan, if you saw a picture, you would know the difference. And
He actually wanted you in red and black.
Yeah, he wanted
a difference.
Yeah, he did not want me to. The biggest thing was he goes, have the essence of the demon character or the alter ego, but he goes, I do not want a clone. I don't want, that's not the idea of this.
I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I did the fire breathing stuff. I did the blood spitting, did all that, because you're doing as much as you can.
Oh, sure.
With the character, but it was, and the outfit was not the same. So it was all done on purpose. All of it was done on purpose.
That's cool. Yeah. Hearing you like kind of expand on, the character. Michael, your first WCW card, and then your second. What was it like to see yourself in card form?
It was pretty cool. I was like, oh wow, it's like a baseball card.
Yeah. And it's embossed. It's cool.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty neat. That, and then the video game, that was kind of funny too.
Oh, that's right. Was it what's WCW? Is it
Backstage Assault?
Okay, there. I forgot what the.
It was like the first ever bit.
It was like rated. It was right before all the graphics changed, and it was rated one of the worst video games.
Oh, was it?
Because the graphics were terrible. It was like blobby. It wasn't even like, and then all that stuff started to change.
Where did they fly? They flew us up to that. What was that?
Vancouver.
Vancouver, yeah.
Yeah, remember
it was a big deal.
They
It was like, wow, this is going to be really cool.
yeah. If anyone realizes, the Demon character is not in any video games, and they flew me up to do everything in Vancouver,
Mhm.
and I got yanked from all the games because WCW was afraid. So there was no merch of the Demon character. There's a baseball card. I don't know if I might have it over there. There was a baseball card in the magazine of mine.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So I got yanked out of the Topps cards. I got yanked out of the video game. Got yanked out of the line of action figures.
Oh, wow.
They were afraid of the contract stated something that if the Demon character was 50% or more of the entity, then there was the lion's share of went to Kiss.
Okay.
But that was so 50% or more. I mean, it's like it had to be just two people on it, basically. So anything else, a video game, a card set, anything, I wasn't 50% of the entirety of it.
Yeah.
But they were afraid of
They were afraid of Chris's legal team.
that they literally pulled me from everything. So all that stuff, literally flown to Vancouver, took all the shots, did everything. We took the shots, I think, in Chicago at the United Center backstage, some photos, and then Vancouver, and then it was taken out of everything. That's why that figure was later on was done. They had Figures Toy Company that had the KISS license was able to get that license. So that was finally done after all those years.
Yeah, that would have been perfect because WCW was releasing those figures in 99, 2000.
Yeah, from Toy Biz.
Yeah, those are a good line of figures.
I have they did an MVP one that I own. That's a 12-inch MVP one because they were getting ready to do that when I started doing the Demon character.
Really?
Yeah, so I have the only
Like the prototype of it?
Yeah, it's a 2-up prototype, hand painted.
That's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Now, when WCW was purchased, were there any rumors of you going over to the WWF? WWE side of things? Were you kind of like done with the wrestling? Why don't you talk about that if you could?
He's looking at him like,
Oh boy.
Oh,
No, there was talks and she went over
oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
to meet with them and
we did.
and
We'll just tell the truth.
Yeah,
I mean, it's all good. It's part of the business. But went over and I think the guys that went over from the Revolution were trying to be helpful about it,
Mhm.
and thought it might be a pretty cool angle with China, but she
Oh, it was kibosh. It was.
China saw her backstage,
she
saw her,
yeah.
went back in, talked to Vince. Vince walked out, looked at her, and kept walking, and then it was done.
Like, see ya. It's
Yeah,
okay.
she didn't want her
It's all right.
there. And then I had a chance. I was supposed to do a tryout match for them at the same time. My dad ended up getting the Montreal Expos managing job, and he
Yeah.
asked me, he said, "Would you be willing to come spend the summer with me? I want family up there with me." And so I said to the WWE, I said, I really appreciate it. If there's still offers still valid after, the summer's over, I'm going to do this with my dad. And then I just never contacted them and they didn't contact me. And then that's when the XWF came in 2002, I think. I want to say 2002, and with Brian Knobs and
Jimmy Hart,
those
right?
guys, Jimmy and Sable and Piper and Vampiro, Hogan, all those guys, and it was an unbelievable roster. That should have done something because that was all in the can. That should have done something. Jerry Lawler was announcing.
That's right off of WF TV.
Yeah, and he was great. But that should have,
Had a good
Mean
feel.
Gene Okerlund, it really did have a good feel. And it just, I actually talked to Kevin Harrington, who was on Shark Tank, who was one of the investors in it. And I talked to him a couple of years ago about the whole thing. But that really should. And so I went there. And so I went Expos. Then I did that in the off season. Then I went to the Marlins in 02, 03 as a strength coach. And then spent 18 years with the White Sox, but would do things in the off season. That's when TNA and Jay Brzezinski, when we did the base brawl thing with then Ozzie Guillen and Johnny Damon. For another time, we had the most unbelievable storyline that TNA was going to do and screwed it up. I said we have one date to get all of these people together. And I will tell you the people that were involved. AJ Brzezinski, Johnny Damon, Ken Griffey Jr.
Oh, wow.
Ric Flair. And then we had a surprise at the very end, and because he agreed to do it. Now think about this. This was like 2007 or 2008. We had this whole thing, and we have one day where everybody could have done this. Ken Griffey Jr. was going to be Ric Flair's tag team partner against me and somebody else. Griffey agreed to get in the ring to learn to do this. And it was Brzezinski was going to be in our corner. Johnny Damon was going to be. We had this whole thing. And the very end of it, A-Rod was going to come in.
Oh, my God.
And hit me with something and roll Griffey's arm on top of me. And they were going to win 1, 2, 3 because you talk about what would have happened for TNA and what that.
Oh my God! I mean, you can't get any more mainstream than those names, Yeah.
One of the people running TNA at the time, I told them, one day we can get this done. Everybody agreed to do it, and everybody agreed in that group. All of us agreed to donate the money to charity. We weren't even going to take salaries. Everybody agreed to their salary for that day was going to be TNA was going to donate it to charity. And I said, but this is the only day. Griffey's going with his son to the next day to recruiting trips. AJ was going before the season to Hawaii. Everybody was dispersed one day. I said, you can't change it. What do you think they did?
Oh, no.
They changed the date. And I said, what? That's it.
Well, did they ever tell you why?
No, because it didn't fit, apparently, in their program. I'm like...
you find a way to kind of make that fit. Right? Yeah.
Like, you're kidding me, right? This is one of those you're going, you're kidding. What this could have done for them... with the media coverage with that, because A-Rod was... Oh,
I was still living in New York. Yeah, in 07, 08. The Yanks won the World Series in what, was it 09? They had won,
so.
Yeah. But 07, 08, the media, he was the biggest figure in sport, especially in New York. There's a story about A-Rod every single day in the paper.
Because the whole storyline was, because Vince Russo was helping when I was coming up with the whole thing. He and I were writing this, and he popped huge when I said that A-Rod, because the way we were going to do it is, Brzezinski and I were going to cheat. I forget who it was. So I had a tag team partner, and I can't remember who it was. It was one of the heel guys at the time for TNA, but we were going to cheat, and AJ was going to help us cheat. And then it looked like, here we are going to do this pin over Ric Flair and Ken Griffey Jr. And then A-Rod comes out and just boom, 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 out, down I go, roll Griffey over, 1, 2, 3, and boom. It would have been, the media coverage would have been ridiculous.
That's wild. Yeah, I've never heard that before. That's an amazing story.
Yeah. I couldn't believe it. And then I get a call the next week. Hey, can you get all them back to do? I said, no, I told you.
Yeah, what are the odds of getting them in the first place? Much less getting them to agree now.
And I kept telling him. I just got off the phone when they said they were changing the date. I was stunned. I shook my head and I got off the phone and I told you, I said, I think you even said, I could, guess what? I think you said they changed the date. And I go, they changed the date. I said, it's over. It's over. We can't do it. Can't do it. Because everyone, like, literally, everybody was gone. One day.
Oh, well.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, to everyone else, right? It's just that they're moving on, right? But TNA doesn't really understand that, right? It was like,
and then they were irritated with me that I couldn't get them all back again. I'm like, are you kidding?
yeah, that's.
I'm going to have a guy before the baseball season come back from Hawaii. I'm going to have one guy come back from taking his son on a recruiting trip. Really? Okay.
Yeah.
But that's some of the politics behind the scenes that kind of gets crazy. But it is what it is.
Thank you for sharing that story with us. As we wind on the live portion, thank you so much for your time, Christi. What do you want to say to everyone that's tuned in the last hour plus, that's purchased a photo, asked a question, or just enjoyed time from both of you guys?
Yeah, this rare opportunity that we're both on, and we just hope we didn't keep you all too long, and we just appreciate you, and it's always been great to be able to meet everybody and talk to people and share what we shared and what you saw, and it's just always been such a blessing, and love you guys. God bless.
We had a great time tonight. Thank you both for spending some time with us. We'll be back tomorrow with at 8 o'clock with Nikki Blackheart, who this will be her last signing anywhere. She signed a major contract, so this is the last chance to get something signed by her. And of course, Glory Days GrappleCon tomorrow. Guys, thank you so much for your time. And we're going to end it the way we always end our virtual signings, which is cheers to the working man.
See ya.